Hi, I'm Phil Hoffmann, founder and managing director of Phil Hoffmann Travel. I'm here at Entrepreneurs in Conversation, and I'm here to tell the PhD story. It's all about going the distance and having passion for your industry or having passion to do it. And so I hope you're going to enjoy my story tonight.
The travel industry, a very competitive market. Why did you decide to get into the travel market?
Well, I had an auntie that wanted one member of the Hoffmann family to travel overseas, and so she helped me with my first ticket to go overseas, and that just got me sort of wrapped about travelling. And from that point on, I just sort of had a desire, one, to travel. I always had the desire to have my own business. I never knew what that was going to be, but as time went on, it started to come together that I loved travel. I wanted to be in business, even though I started as a teacher. I was a senior lecturer in staff development at TAFE, and I helped the industry put together the first couple of travel courses for the industry. And so I sort of had that passion about travel, wanting to be in business, and then a couple of things happened where I was doing some management work for a Swiss company that owned travel agencies right throughout Australia, and they asked me to find a manager for South Australia. And I went back to them and said, I can't find you the manager, but I want to do it. And they said, but you wouldn't give up your government job to take on private enterprise. And I said, I'd like to have a go at it. And I went back to the college where I was at Regency Park, and I said to the principal there that I was going to resign. And he said, no, you won't. I'll give you a year's leave of absence to have industrial leave. Then if you don't want to come back, then you resign. And so it took me 3 years to go back and get all my books from the college. And I fell in love with what I call, private enterprise and business. And I ran that company for the Swiss for 10 years. And then we got bought out by Coles Myer Ansett, which was probably the largest retailer and one of the largest domestic airlines at that stage. And I think I lasted 3 hours, and I made up my mind then it was time to do my own thing as Phil Hoffmann Travel. And so I resigned within about 6 weeks. But I actually resigned in my own mind in 3 hours because just the way they treated us as far as thinking about South Australia, the company in South Australia. And I thought it's time to go and do my own thing. And I had a brother that said, if you don't do it by a certain age, you'll never do it. Fear sets in and you want security. So at the age of 43, I set up Phil Hoffmann Travel.
So there you are at 43 years of age, you dive headfirst into the travel market.
2 staff and myself, so we're 3 staff at Glenelg, and 1 week after I started, the 2 domestic airlines deregulated the airfares, so the airfares went from being sort of magical airfares up there to right down there. Now they're even further down than that. And then 3 months later, we had the first Gulf War. So I'm sitting there on January the 16th, and the first Gulf War has started, and I'm thinking nobody's going to travel. And then Mr. Keating said this is the recession, it will be good for us. And so I'm thinking I'm really clever that I've left one of the biggest retailers and travel people in Australia, in the Southern Hemisphere, to open my own business with only 3 staff. But it was probably a good lesson because, it just made you work harder to build a business. And so in the next 10 years, we went from 3 staff to about 35 staff in building the business. And then we had another couple of things that hit us, called September 11, when the Twin Towers went down, and also 3 days later, Ansett collapsed. So I sat on the end of my bed one night after 2 weeks of that happening and thinking I could lose this business and I've done nothing wrong. But it just, again, makes you work harder. And with about 35, 40 staff at that stage, I went to the staff and I said, I'll either have to reduce the number of staff or we'll all take the hit and we'll go to a 4-day week. And we went to a 4-day week for about 8 weeks and got through. And I got that idea just from reading stuff in magazines and papers. When the European markets go soft, they often go to a 4-day week, and so that's what I did. And we got through that. But it was a scary time because an airline to collapse, and then people got scared of flying, nervous. And you're sitting there with a lot of staff and 2 officers at this stage. And so then after that, you sort of started rebuilding again, and then we started growing the network, and then we had 2 Bali bombings, we had SARS, we had another Gulf War, and then we had in 2008 the GFC, and again testing your mettle of how you survive in those times. One of the big things I think I learned as an operator, as a manager, was don't sit there and get paralysis. You've got to do things and you've got to move quickly and you've got to keep out there into the public. And one of the things that, you know, I did when I started Phil Hoffmann Travel was to do a radio program with Bob Francis. Now, I don't know whether anyone in this age group listened to Bob Francis, but we did it for 23 years. And I'd drive up Anzac Highway every Tuesday night at 8:45 thinking the way he was talking to his listeners, there'd be no one listening. But it was actually a fantastic audience for us, and it really helped build our business. And we did that for, you know, nearly 23 years with Bob, building on our being there, you know, and talking about travel. And so when something negative happened in the market, we then went on and talked about, you know, the positive side. And it's exactly like we're facing that same situation with MH17 and MH370 when it happens, or when anything happens, you know, Costa, you know, falling over in the water or collapsing or hitting a rock or whatever. You just got to get up and be positive about, you know, what's going on in the rest of the world and keep the market moving, because we're in the game of travel and the business. I was actually going to be flying to Canada and the States the next day with my family after September 11. And I came home from doing radio on a Tuesday night, and I'm looking at the TV, and suddenly I see these planes going to the towers, and I thought it was a movie, and it wasn't. And you know, the next day I go down to the airport at Adelaide Airport and Cathay Pacific, and I was flying to Hong Kong, and then on to Vancouver. Said, Phil, we don't really want to take you because we think you'll get stranded in Hong Kong because nothing is flying out of Hong Kong on. And I said, well, what a great place to be stranded. If I'm going to be stranded in Hong Kong for 4 days, let's do it there. But then on Friday that same week, Ansett collapsed. And I rang the office and they said, Phil, we think you better come home because we have 495 Ansett Grand Final packages. We have accommodation, we have tickets to the game. We now don't have an airline. So I came back home to sort all that out, and we got through. So you get through these things, but again, the biggest lesson I said to the younger management staff, don't sit around, don't get paralysis, you've got to work through it.
At 43 years of age, though, you took the plunge. You were in a fairly comfortable job. You took the plunge into creating your own business. A lot of people, let's face it, would be very scared at that age of doing it. What drove you? Was it just the passion for travel?
Yeah, I think it's the passion for travel, the passion to run your own business. I think I always had some sort of entrepreneurial spirit, but I can tell you, you get tested when you suddenly drive your car in the different direction after 10 years going uptown to run a place that's owned by the Swiss, and you know, plenty of backing to your own backing, which wasn't big, and you're driving a car and you think, what if no one walks through the door? I've rented this place for the next 5 years. I've signed a contract for technology for the next 5 years. And what if no one walks through the door? But someone said to me one day, Phil, when your house is on the end of the line, you actually make it happen. You need to make it happen. And so therefore you can't sit, you just got to get out there and market. And I suppose I've always had a bent for marketing, you know, and being up there with people. And so as we did radio, we did, and the company that I left, Stuart Moffat Travel, which came Coles, Meyer, Ansett, I said to them when I was leaving, please don't put a Coles, Meyer clone into the Adelaide office. Please put an Adelaide person that, you know, knows the Adelaide market, knows travel, and could take over and run that place. And so what do? They put a Coles, Meyer clone in, who then destroyed the business, because the first thing he said on the first Monday morning when he took over, I'm not going to do any of that crap advertising that Phil used to do. So the gloves were off for me, and then I took up the advertising with the advertiser and radio and everything else, and we built the business.
Well, let's talk about the marketing. I guess Adelaide is a town that you can own through a brand as strong as Phil Hoffmann Travel. Traditional media, radio, TV, newspapers, and new media, social media and the internet alike. What is your spread of marketing? What makes it so successful for you?
Consistency. I think you've got to be out there consistently. And I've got to tell you, when I had a manager for my groups department, he wanted to do an ad on groups, and he set the first ad up, and it looked good. And then the next week he said, "Oh, we've got to do the ad again." I said, "Oh no, we only need one ad." He said, I won't sell it with only one ad. He said, if you want me to fill up 30 or 40 people on this group, you've got to be in there every week for so many weeks now. So he kept saying to me, with marketing, advertising, it's consistency, it's part of your brand, you've got to be out there. And so I suppose over the years we learnt the discipline of what marketing's all about, and being out there all the time. And then I learned very quickly that if you're in a budgeting process with your business, you've got to allow a certain percentage of your turnover to go into marketing, and you can't deviate from that. You can spend more if you've got it, but you've got to sort of say, well, no, we've got to make a commitment. Whereas a lot of people say, no, I'll just let it happen and maybe it will happen. Whereas we spend well over 1.5% of our turnover on marketing, and that's a set defined figure that we work on. And now we turn over 120 million of travel, and so it's something like 1.5 million plus that we spend on advertising every time. So we're on TV, we're in the press, we're in radio. And if you ask me which one of the most effective ones is actually radio, because you actually sort of have a dialogue out there.
You say the right things, Phil.
No, and I've said it many times. I just love radio. I mean, normally I'd be doing radio tonight on AA, and we've been doing it for 24 years. But I love radio because it's live. You can get your personality of your business over, your personality of yourself over there, and it's not like you have to do a hard sell. You have to sell your credibility, what you stand for, what your company stands for, and the type of products that you are, selling and talking to people about travelling.
But what do you find the most effective? Is it the brand that you're selling of Phil Hoffmann, or is it a call to action with specific tours and that?
It's both.
Yeah.
I think as you develop your brand. It gives you a certain amount of credibility to your audience, but then you've got to have products that your clients want, or that you're exciting them about wanting to come and travel with you on those packages, whether it be a cruise package, whether it be going to the Canada, Alaska, going European river cruising, going to South America trekking, whatever. You've got to have the package, and what we've always tried to do is come up with a lot of unique packages that you can't just walk down the street and buy. So we'll take a Canada, Alaska package, and because all our staff travel on going away, their job is when they come back is to critique that product and make sure that could it be any better? Could we do this? Could we do that? Could we add a few nights here to make it, more enjoyable for people rather than a rush? Today it's Tuesday, it's Paris. Tomorrow it's Wednesday, it's Belgium. You don't want that happening, so therefore you keep working on your packages to make them better.
Where are the emerging markets that you're looking
South
at?
America is very strong at the moment. It's a really strong, and I think especially after the soccer, with the World Games, the Olympics coming up. South America, very exciting destination, a destination I love particularly. I think Croatia, if you said to me, pick one that's emerging, it's been there a lot of these destinations have been there for hundreds of years, thousands of years, but they're emerging as travel destinations as they come easy to get to, but also as the product comes better and more deliverable, people are really going there. Russia was getting a bit of momentum, but I think it's going to come off the boil for a little while. And Ukraine's definitely out of the calendar. And Iraq.
The stuff that is beyond your control, and that is the disasters, the wars. You touched on that before. Look, how do you react to that sort of stuff when you've got a lot of this travel, I guess, in the bag for a lot of people? Have you got a crisis management plan that you work to?
It's not so much a crisis management. It's just that I think you've got to put a positive spin on it. And look, there are nervous. I have a brother, when he travels with me, he looks at the engine on the plane for the next 26 hours to London because he thinks it's going to fall off. And I said, well, you're not going to be able to do much if it does, but he just is a nervous traveller, whereas other people, for me, getting on a plane is a taxi ride, to going wherever I'm going. So you get the nervous traveller and you get others. So when MH17 happened last week, immediately we made sure that our staff rang our clients, that if they wanted to change or they were nervous about it, we go into what I'll call a positive situation. When Qantas granted all the aircraft, and I think some of my corporates are here tonight, I was at a christening it was a Saturday afternoon at 5 o'clock. By the time I turned the phone back on, I had 12 staff working around the clock to ring every person that was on a Qantas flight. We had 196 passengers stranded around the world. So you go into action, but as I said right at the start, it's being positive about going into action, doing something positive, ringing them up. Do you want to transfer? Do you want to go on another airline? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And so it gives them an answer out if they're very nervous, because it's no point. And I've gone downstairs sometimes when there's been, say, something happened in Thailand or somewhere, and you see, some ladies saying, oh, I'm a bit nervous about going. I said, well, if you're nervous, I don't want you to go. And they go, oh, you don't want us? I said, no, because if you're going to be looking over your shoulder for the trip, you're not going to enjoy it. Then the groups come back, and passed on that they had the most fabulous time. They said, well, Phil, why didn't you talk me into it? And I said, no, when I saw you, you were too nervous to travel. There's no point in you going. I'd love you to travel, but I'm not going to try and talk you if you don't feel comfortable. So I think it's just being honest with people and giving them the choice.
It's a very competitive market you're in, and for those of us that have travelled, we've probably put together our own itinerary. We've probably done some research these days as to what we would spend. We'll hand it to somebody like yourself, and you'll do it for cheaper, yet you've got to make money. How do you do that?
That's a good question. I ask that every year when I do the budgets. No, it's about the expertise we have, in putting it together and buying the right product. I think I told you the story. I have a daughter who's a doctor, and when it comes to common sense, there's not a lot there, but as a doctor, she's fabulous. So she rings from Papua New Guinea. Don't quote me on that, I'll get into trouble. But she's also married to an engineer that works in a very great place in South Australia as well. And last night I saw a car in our garage down at Hoffmann Shores, and I said to my wife, what's the car doing there? They've got a bought electric car. They forgot to put the plug in and plug it up and get the power on. And so they had to change over and borrow one of our cars. But anyway, she's in Papua New Guinea working, and she rings home to her mother and she says, oh, we've seen this great package to go to Fiji online, And her mother said, you do know that Dad and I own an agency? She said, yeah, but it's on the internet. You won't beat that. She said, well, why don't we try and just have a look at it? So we go off to the staff and said, have a look at this Fiji package. They've got same place, same resort, all the same benefits, right? And so we ring her back the next night, and in the meantime, she's gone to the resort direct and got an even a better price than she had on the internet. Our price came and beat it. She said, how could you possibly do that? And my wife said, well, we're in the business. We've been in it a long time. We do know how to buy. We do know how to do this. We do know how to do that. She says, well, why aren't you telling more people that? And she said, no, your father spends $1.5 million a year telling people that. That's your own daughter, So you're up against that. But what we're finding now is a lot more people, yes, they do their work on the internet, but then they want to come and talk to people who've been there or done it and know what to think. And I was talking to someone the other day about, the cruise ship business has just gone, bonkers in the last, say, 5 years, with a lot more new ships coming on, a lot more new builds. But people don't get confused, what ship should I pick, because if you put the wrong person on the wrong ship, they're going to come back and hate it. And I was in Kangaroo Island and I was staying with a friend's place, and this lady said, oh, I hate cruising. And I said, oh, why? She said, I went on Costa. And I said, well, one, I wouldn't have given you the brochure, first of all, let alone let you go. But I said, why did you pick Costa? And she said, oh, my Italian neighbours told me that it was a good shipping line. I said, well, I think we've seen a bit of evidence that it's not a good shipping line. But it's just the wrong type of ship because they run it like a ferry. People get on and off at every port, and that's not what cruising's about. But so it's knowing. It's the same if, one young guy at a function one night at awards night, and he said to me, I can sell anything, any destination to anybody. And I said, well, I want you to sell me Egypt, Israel and Jordan as a tour. I said, because if you get it wrong, your clients are not going to get into one of the next countries if you get it wrong. And he had no idea, but he said, that's unfair. So I said, no, I didn't shoot my mouth off. You shot your mouth off. I'm telling you, if you don't know how to do it correctly, your client's going to have a stamp in there, on an Israeli stamp on your passport, and going to go back to London and get another passport before they get into Jordan. But, so it's all experience, Same with South America. The other day, a young 24-year-old flew straight into Bolivia and started climbing and got altitude sickness, right, and died, 24 years old. Now, he should have known. Someone should have told him. You're going into one of the highest points in South America straight away, and he kept climbing. The moment you get altitude sickness, you've got to get down quickly from that high altitude to start getting it down. But if you don't, then, the worst can happen.
You are talking about experience here, and one of the important things about Phil Hoffmann Travel is your staff. Their experience and picking the right staff, obviously, is a big part of it.
Staff is the biggest part of your business, is your staff and their experience and the continuous training. Now, I was lucky because, I did an honours degree in chemistry, a diploma of education, so I was always into sort of training and studying, and then I did staff development at TAFE, And so I always believe that you're only as good as your training and continuous education, and a continuous education in whatever field it is, but also outside fields as well, which I think you have a great opportunity at functions like this to hear people talk about their business, whatever it is. It just gives you ideas. I'm a prolific reader. I love reading, especially when I get on a plane, because no one can contact me for 24 hours. So I always take a couple of books every time. I buy new books when I'm away, so that, because you pick up ideas, of what people do in businesses, in other businesses, you can always take those on. So it's training your staff going away and seeing new destinations. And the other day, my HR officer came in and started telling me about all the trips that our staff had done in the last 30 days. And it's incredible, with the number going. You sometimes wonder whether you're running a business or they're actually just travelling, But you can't beat that experience. That's what sells travel to the public. And, we're in the public face all the time. So it's being able to talk to people about travelling and get them excited about travelling. And one of the things I've enjoyed in my job, I suppose, is to be able to come back from a new destination and get excited and create noise about it. And that's my marketing role, I suppose, is create noise about a destination and get people excited about it, whether it's Turkey, Jordan, whatever, and get people thinking, gee, I'd love to go there. You can. When I first went to Turkey to study Turkey as a destination, and I was with another gentleman, we're travelling around, I said, what's your thoughts about how we're going to sell this destination? He said, well, one of the biggest things we've got to overcome is the film called Midnight Express. Now, I don't know whether anyone in this room has seen it, but it frightens the hell out of you travelling to Turkey. But that was like 20 years ago, or 25 years ago. Now it's just everyone loves going to Turkey. They love the people. They love going there and experiencing the culture and everything else. But it's creating that noise and the want for people to want to do the destination. That's where I suppose I get my kick and the excitement from.
Yeah. Hooking into Adelaide, people travelling from Adelaide, have you seen any changes in the demographics of the age groups of people travelling, or indeed their destinations?
Well, I've always loved Adelaide as a market, because I've always think that Adelaide people have actually been more adventurous travellers than a lot of the other states. Now, they're all catching us now, but I've always said that we used to come on with destinations, whether it was Bhutan and, Nepal and other places and China and all that, a lot faster than a lot of the eastern states. And they used to get amazed that we'd get groups away. But again, I've always said I think the South Australian traveller has been an adventurous traveller. But what we're seeing now with the baby boomers, which is a big part of our market, is they're travelling more extensively. They're travelling nearly every year with a lot of them. Now they're taking their grandchildren and grandkids away in terms of multi-generational travel. We're seeing a lot of that. When I say that on radio, sometimes the announcers say, can you say that louder, Phil, so that my parents can hear that they've got to take, The other day I said to my wife, I said, I want to take our two grandchildren, we've got two granddaughters. I said, I want to take them to Disney. She said, well, I think you're going to have to take the parents as well. I said, no, bugger the parents, I don't want to take them. I just want to take the grandchildren, and experience it with them. But that's not going to happen. I'm going to have to take them all. But so we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of people now spending a lot more time in, say, Italy and France and places like that, where they actually immerse themselves in. So we run Italian cooking classes and Italian language classes at Phil Hoffmann Travel on Saturdays and on Thursday nights. And part of it is to sell the concept of going to Italy or France or whatever and staying over there in a villa or longer immersion courses in there to really experience the destination. So we're seeing that the market expand and people wanting to do more.
A typical day for Phil Hoffmann. Now this is going to be a tough one, I know, for you to answer, but I guess to give an idea of what an entrepreneur like yourself would do on a daily basis, what does your day consist of?
Okay. I start at about 6. I get up and I go to the gym for an hour. Then I have a swim in the ocean out at Holfar Shores, and then breakfast, and then I go into work at about 8:45, 10 to 9, and then I'll start looking at all the emails that are on my desk or on the computer. Or I may go for a walk around and see all the staff in the Glenelg office, because that's the head office where I go around and see them. And then I'll start working on whatever the project is, or it's maybe a marketing meeting. Like today we had a meeting on groups for 215, 216. And then tomorrow, the first meeting tomorrow morning is budgeting for all of 2015, 2016 budgets, and we think we're being optimistic for 2015. My accountant thinks we're on steroids, and we've got to come back off of that, so he wants to adjust them down a little bit. So again, it's all those sorts of things. Tomorrow night, I'll do a full day tomorrow in the office. Tomorrow night I jump on Emirates and I fly to Paris, and then I'm taking a group with me tomorrow night, and we're going to Iceland and Greenland for the Arctic Circle, and I'll do that for 2 weeks. Wow. And then I come back and so the day is whatever, in terms of like the best part of this afternoon was I spent on looking at programs where I'm going to put a cruise product and a land product together that I think is exciting and different. And so then I'll go back down to the group's product people, the product person, and say, I'm thinking about this, what's your thoughts? And then they'll play with it, right? And then yesterday afternoon we had a guy over from the States on luxury travel, and I've got 6 staff going to Vegas in 2 weeks' time for training in what we call the luxury market, when they meet a lot of the suppliers, whatever. So every day is different. Every day is different. And tonight, normally I'd be doing radio tonight at a certain time and go on radio. So and on Saturday mornings I do a session called Where's Phil? And we do a bit of fun on this. And when I'm away, I do it from wherever the destination is, which is incredible some mornings because it's like 2:30. The last time I did one I was in Berlin, and it was 2:30 in the morning. So I set the alarm at 2, got up, went into the bathroom, and then did the program from the bathroom. And the 5AA guy said, Phil, you sound like it's echoing a bit. And I said, well, I'm in the bathroom at the hotel in Berlin. And I said, because my wife is going to kill me when I go back out there and I wake her up. so it's live. Then other times it's not. We're back here in Adelaide, but I still do it from a destination to create excitement about the destination. So there's never a dull moment in what I do or our life. And the same with all the staff. They're all involved in, areas and business. I try to keep every one of them, excited about their desks, their clientele. On Sunday, we had, just as an example, and this is something that I think is just what some of the staff do, when we have groups going away, part of the tour director's role is when they come back, within 6 weeks they have a reunion, either at a hotel or a restaurant or an office. And so I had 2 on the weekend. So one was at 7 Stars in the town, the other one was back at the office. And the staff said, would you call in and say hello to 2 of the groups? But where it's fantastic is, the feedback you get on them being away together and the excitement, and then what they're thinking about the next trip, which is fantastic, And some of these groups now, one particular one that I do with Canada Alaska that I took away, 10 years ago, they meet twice a year. I get the invitation to go twice a year. And you're trying to fit all these in and all the times. But it's part of your business. It's part of, what makes, I think, Phil Hoffmann Travel different to, not an ordinary agent, when they say that, but, it's that personal touch that you've got to have in your business. If you're in retail or if you're in a contact business with people, and you ask me what are some of the things that make it, one is your passion for your business, and 2, that you've got to like people. Because if you don't like people, you're not going to get on. I get people to apply for a job, and they, the first thing they say, I don't want to consult. I said, well, what do you think travel is about? It's selling travel. It's consulting, but I don't want to do that. And I said, well, I think you're in the wrong place. But a lot of because they, and look, some don't want to consult, but they shouldn't even apply, or they should say, I want a backroom job where I don't have to face people. I was away with one of my staff one day, and we're having breakfast, and she didn't say a word. And I said, you don't say much in the mornings, do you? And she said, no, I don't talk before lunchtime. And I'm thinking, she's a bloody consultant for me, and she doesn't talk. How does she turn over figures? And she's actually a good consultant. She said, no, my boyfriend and I don't talk. I said, well, you wouldn't live with me very long, because you're in the people's game. And if we want to beat the internet, if we want to stay in front of the internet or technology, we've got to be the dimension that we add to the business. We've got to be the walking internet. We've got to be better than the internet in terms that we're a human face or a human person, and people can ring us and talk to us. When something goes down, when people can't travel because of the snowfields or the ice on the runway and the plane's grounded, they want to talk to someone. They don't want to get in a line with 400 people in front of them in Los Angeles airport trying to get on a plane. But they can pick up a phone. There's one of the girls over there runs a lot of that show, that runs the 24/7. And they're talking to a live Phil Hoffmann travel consultant. Not someone we pay outside. It's a live person lying in bed that gets a 3 a.m. call saying, the hotel is burnt down, I've lost my passport, how do I get home? Tsunami, you know, up in Thailand, you know. People, who do they talk to? How do they get home? And that's where we think we add that service of the 24/7 for all our clients to be able to have backup. And then we say we're travelling with you all the time. Sorry, Kevin, I talked too much.
That's yeah. Look, I really wanted to talk about your charity work because I do believe that is a big part of building the Phil Hoffmann Phil Hoffmann brand here in Adelaide.
One of the ones that I suppose I'm very proud of is I'm an ambassador for Minda, and I never knew really why they asked me, but they said, Phil, you know, you're a personality down in the Glenelg area and a business thing down the area, and we'd always contributed to when they were raising funds and all that. And then to go down and experience Minda and see all the operational side, you just think, you know, how much more can you give to them, because it's such a great cause, and then there's so many others, Anglicare and all the other things. And sometimes, you know, I sit at meetings where the finance people will say, oh, you know, is there an ROI on this? And I said, there's not. And there never will be, because we've got to give back. What we've taken in some ways and now being successful, you've got to give back. And I think it's just part of what your company stands for, or your culture of your company as a family business. You've got to be able to give back to, you know, people that are less advantaged. And I didn't realise just how many clients had people in Minda and in other places that we, Bedford and all the others that we look after. And as I say, you know, there's no value. You know, you just say, that's I can, and I go back to my father. I mean, your parents play a big part in your life, no matter what people say. In terms of saying, he used to say to me when, you know, you're walking through Badge Day in Adelaide on Friday, if you can give, you give. If you haven't got it in your pocket, you can't. But I used to have friends that say, no, I only give to one Badge Day in the year or whatever. But I always feel that if I've got $2, $4, $5 in my pocket, then if that goes to a good cause, I'll give that $5 or $2 or whatever it is. And I think you get it 10 times in return in life. And it's the same with your staff. And, you know.
Phil, I understand that the South Australian government is using a UK travel agency. Why aren't they using Phil Hoffmann?
Well, Duncan Fetridge has asked that in Parliament, and yeah, we'd love to. That's when I get annoyed with government, when they don't do some things like that. And one of the things they did years ago, they put all the departments of the government together into one account, and suddenly it became so big for, you know, the average agency in South Australia to look after. We could possibly do it now because of our size, but then we couldn't. But we all had little segments of looking after education department, or, you know, police department, or whatever. And they were little, you know, $500,000, $2 million, $3 million accounts, and you could look after them. Then they pulled it all together to about 30 million. At the moment, they're not great payers, so we're not sure whether we want to do it, and they want you to do it for nothing. And the other thing was, I never wanted to be responsible for getting told off by all the ministers in South Australia for the coffee that was cold on the plane, or we lost their bags, or whatever. But no, I think it's a great question, because it's a great question because we not only ask for travel, but every tender a preference should be for South Australia, you know, because South Australian companies need it, you know. And I know for a fact that we can beat a lot of those prices so easily, but, you know, they do it a different way. They cheat a little bit in what they do with tender. And they don't even have 24/7. They don't even operate at 24/7, because I've had ministers ring me and say, Phil, we're in trouble. We've got someone, you know, that's had an accident. Can you help? You know, and I said, well, I can't help. Yeah, I'd love to, but it's, you know, we can't touch the ticket. We can't do this. We can't do that. But they don't run a genuine 24/7, and it's such an important thing in travel. You know, you cannot beat the word of mouth and referral. You know, from, you know, if you look at all your top consultants, or if I look at all my top consultants in my place, so many of them just work on referral. They don't need new business. It's sometimes your weaker ones that can't either sell or can't convince that they, you know, great at knowledge on you know, whatever. But your good ones, You know, one of the early days at Stuart Moffat Travel, I had 4 consultants, you know, in a row in 4 desks at the start of the office, and number 3 kept saying, Phil, we need to do more advertising. And I said, why? And she said, well, you know, I need more work. And I said, well, it's interesting that desk 1 is full, desk 2 is full, desk 4 is full. They've missed 3. Gee, that's incredible, isn't it? It just wasn't good enough, you know. So you're right, referral, and we work on that all the time, that, you know, the word of mouth and the backup and the things you do, the little touches you do is what tells someone else, or someone else comes. We run our own, we do 2 expos a year. One is with the industry, one in February at the Convention Centre, and we do the other one at the Convention Centre on our own on October, and we have nearly over 5,000 people come to that on the Sunday. And that's our own clients bringing, you know, neighbours and others. So we put 5,000 people through on the one day. And often people say, Phil, why do you do it? You know, and I said, well, it's all about touching your client again, saying hello. I call it, you know, a lot of the staff say, Phil, I've never known that someone has got so many aunties and uncles. I said, well, they've been coming to me for 30 years. You know, they come like an auntie and uncle to you, and then they've got their kids and their grandchildren and all that. So I said, you know, you come closer than just as a client relationship. They come friends. You know, people say, do you ever get tired of travelling? And when you travel with people, you meet so many nice people because they're all got the common cause to travel. One of the things we do when we're taking a group away, we have a handover night where we badge everybody, we talk about the trip, we give them all their documentation, and they have drinks and nibbles to get to know each other. And when they come back, we have the reunion, and then we say to them, tell us something about the trip that was just a standout or something you got out of it. Don't tell us that, you know, I was a good tour leader or I was a bad tour leader. I don't want to know that. You know, I know whether I'm good or bad, but, you know, but just say about the trip. And this lady got up and she said, I'll tell you what I said when I left the handover night. She said to her husband in the car going home, I'm not sure how I'm going to put up with these oldies for these old farts, as she said, pardon the French, for 3.5 weeks. When she came back, she said at the reunion, I was there because I was the tour leader, she said, I've made 46 new friends. And then this woman had cancer. And she said, Phil, the closest people to me over those next 5 years, she said, was that 46 people that were on my Canada trip. That's the powerful thing of travel or travelling together, you know, as people get older and want the security and all that. How do you put a value on that, you know? So what you're saying, referral, the whole thing is just so powerful. Sorry.
That's right. Hi, Phil. I've just got a question. You said when you started out in a recession, and you said you had to make sure that things actually worked out. But obviously with having, I assume, a limited budget, how did you make that work? Like, what were the specific strategies that you used to make sure that you made it through that recession?
Right. We did seminars every week, and even when the war was on, the Gulf War and the recession and that, every week we did a seminar for the public to come in, and whether it was, you know, going to Canada, Alaska, whether it was going to Europe or whatever, we did seminars every week. And all the staff kept saying to me, Phil, but no one's travelling, you know, because the war was on and something else was on, and, you know, it was just so quiet. I said, but hang on, when it turns, when it comes back, guess where they're going to come? Because they've come to us. And the one thing that we built ourselves from day one was it wasn't about showing videos, it wasn't showing this, and wasn't talking prices. It was us talking the destination. Why do you go, you know, if you're going to go to Canada, Alaska, what do you got to go and see and do? How do you go and see and do it? How's the best? When's the best time to do it, you know? Same with Europe and all that. So we just did seminar after seminar after seminar. And one day we had an audience, you know, probably like this, sitting in the seminar room, and right in the middle there was a guy that I knew was a marketing man from somewhere else. So I made sure when I finished, I went up to him, I said, did I pass? And he goes, yeah, it was pretty good. But he said, I noticed you didn't take the names and addresses of everyone here. And I said, I don't want to. I'm not a used car salesperson. I want to impress them that my team, me and my team, know our products, know our destinations, and we're excited. And one couple was sitting right in the front row one of the sessions, and they came to me after and they said, Phil, we're really embarrassed because we've actually booked with someone else. And I said, that doesn't matter. I said, but let me tell you, I said, obviously you didn't get all the information you wanted because you wouldn't be here if you had it all. I said, no, you're right. They said, no, we know where we'll book next time. So sometimes you've got to go, you've got to do those, what I call the hard yards, stay the long distance. And look, the staff were questioning my sanity, when we're doing all these seminars and everything else, when, it was really quiet. And I said, but we'll come out the other end. It has to turn, it has to get better. And when people do, and one of the things that you only hold the public back for a certain time before they got to travel. It's just now a right they want to travel. One of the things when September 11 happened, and people said, oh, people won't go to the States, they won't do this. And I said, you watch what will happen. The airfares will drop, the cruise prices drop, we put them together and suddenly we had these great prices. Fear left the door, greed takes over, they travel. And the market came back. And it does every time, because people now have a passion to travel. They have a hunger to travel. They'll only hold back. If the climate's bad in terms of, economics and all that, like GFC. If ever there was a time to travel, it was the GFC. I mean, we were giving travel away. We called it 24/7 marketing. We were doing so much marketing in the corridors. We'd get an idea, we'd say, okay, let's put a special out this weekend. We'll have a barbecue out the front of the shop down at Glenelg, and we'll do this and do that to get people walking home. They go, Phil, what's going on? We've got the barbecue here, and Asia on sale, cruise on sale. But it brought people in the door. And they suddenly saw the pricing, and they go, wow. When the SARS happened, Hong Kong and Singapore were just out of reach, like people saying, we're not going to go through there, whatever. So there were 2 ships owned by Star Cruises, and they brought them around Australia. Out of those 2 ships coming around, we were down at Outer Harbour with little machines for, taking people's bank card and getting them on the ship for $6.99 to go to Fiji and all that. Out of it, one company in Adelaide called me to a meeting and said, Phil, we've got a group that we want to take on one of the ships, how would we go? So I went to the meeting, and I'm thinking they're talking of 150, 200 people. I'm getting really excited. They said, no, we want the whole ship. I said, whole ship, that's 2,000 people. Yeah. I said, well, let me tell you, it's about a $1 million non-refundable deposit. I said, yeah, not a problem. So I go back to the office on a Saturday morning, and the staff said to me, Phil, how do we go? And I go, they want the whole ship. And they said, well, why aren't you excited? And I said, guys, we've never moved any more than 100, 150 people. I said, we're talking about $10 million worth of work and 2,000 people. Well, we got that contract twice from an Adelaide company out of what was going to be a very awful time with SARS, which was blown out of proportion, but we worked through it. As I said, we were down at Outer Harbour with credit card facilities selling.